Hey guys, Franchise here with Franchise80s.com, and thanks again for joining me on another one of my videos. Today's video is going to be to showcase an item from my collection, my own personal collection. This item, as you can see, I'm all decked out in my Star Wars gear here, is a very, very rare Star Wars figure called the Vinyl Caped Jawa. It's mint condition, mint on card, and it's on the original 12-back card. This is one of the first 12 figures released back in 1977 by the Kenner Corporation. And it featured the Jawa with a vinyl cape. Now, the reason that this is so rare is because when they first released the Jawa, it was released with this vinyl cape, and then the Kenner toy company thought that it looked cheap. So what they did is shortly after its release, they changed the cape to a cloth cape. So they didn't make very many of these, which makes them extremely sought after. Anytime you find any type of Jawa with the vinyl cape, it's going to be extremely rare. And the reason it's called the 12-back is because, as you can see on the back, is the 12 original figures that that were for sale at the time. It was you bought a figure, you could turn around and see what other figures you could collect, the 11 other figures that would be on the back. So that's actually 12 total with the figure that you would have bought. So that's why it's called the 12-back. And it's really highly sought after by collectors. It really goes for a lot of money. It's one of the rarest of the Star Wars toys. So I'm going to read you a little bit about it here really quick. One of the excerpts that I've seen here online, it says the carded version, which is what I have. This is mint on card. So there's two types. There's loose figures, right, or figures that are on card, which means that they're in their original package. So the carded version of the Vinyl Caped Jawa in mint condition can easily reach $3,000 or more and is extremely rare. It falls into the category of the ultra rare Star Wars items, such as the carded or loosed Darth Vader with Red Telescoping Lightsaber, the carded or loose Obi-Wan Kenobi with Blue Telescoping Lightsaber, and the rocket firing Boba Fett prototypes that do exist. So one of my earlier videos, you've seen my rocket firing Boba Fett. That one's probably the rarest figure that I have. But this Jawa, this Vinyl Caped Jawa, is definitely a very rare figure. And I just wanted to share it with you guys. I wanted to talk a little bit too about collecting rare and vintage Star Wars figures. And some of the great resources that I have been able to get and to share with you guys. I'm going to share with you guys these resources to be able to educate yourself on really high-end collectibles like this. I mean, a lot of people I know probably watch my videos. Anybody watches my videos, I'm sure either you know me personally, or you're if you stumbled upon my channel and you're still watching, that's because you are into collecting toys and collectibles. And then there's people who just watch it and think, wow, this guy collects toys. Really exciting, right? Well, it can be. Toys are can fetch a lot of money. $3,000 for an action figure might seem crazy to you, but there are people who are willing to pay that and way more. Not only pay it, but fight over it. There's not too many of these, you know, and especially the rocket firing Boba Fett. There's not very many of them at all. And to have, for a collector to have the opportunity, just the opportunity to purchase one for $4 or $5 or even $10,000 they would jump at that chance. I've been offered a lot of money for my Rocket Flyer and Boba Fett, and to me, it's an investment. It's an investment to hold on to. I mean, some of these figures, like I said, some of these collectibles, they go up. The value goes up faster than gold does. I mean, these are 30-year-old figures, and some of these figures have gone up in price. 1,000%, 2,000%, which is more than precious metals and coins and other things like that. They're really rare. So I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the resources that can help you educate you in the Star Wars toy universe. And one of the collectibles is this collectible book. The book itself is worth money. It's a collector's book. I mean, this thing called the Star Wars The Ultimate Action Figure Collection book. It's a really nice thick book here. And it has a lot of great pictures and details. I'll just open up one page here. And it spans the whole Star Wars toy universe from all the companies that's made the toys, from the Kenner Corporation to Hasbro. It has a bunch of great information and pictures in there. Another great book that you should get if you are a Star Wars enthusiast, toy collector, is this one, the Star Wars Action Figure Archive. Another book very similar to the one I just showed you. This also has a whole bunch of great information and great pictures with a lot of detail about all the Star Wars figures. And then finally, this other book that recently just came out by a very well-known author as far as in the toy world, toy universe. Mark Belomo is someone very respected when it comes to action figures and toys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He's very well respected, and he makes some really great books. It's just one of the many books that he's published, this book is really an awesome book for anyone who's into Star Wars and the toys. And there you have it. This is just to show you some of the stuff. This gets into really a great detail and has great pictures and would really help you understand the history of the toy line, which is a really rich history. The Kenner Corporation, the history of the Kenner Corporation and Star Wars toy line is really interesting. I mean, I'll give you a really brief rundown of it. I recommend that you guys watch on Netflix The Toys That Made Us. It's a documentary series on Netflix about some of these great toy lines. The first episode is about Star Wars and the Kenner Corporation, and on that documentary, it talks about how Kenner got the contract to do Star Wars. At first, nobody really had any faith in the Star Wars movies. They didn't look like they were going to be a success. George Lucas tried to pitch the movie to all the biggest toy companies. He went to Mattel, he went to Hasbro at the time. There were really big toy companies, and he got rejected by them. They weren't really interested in Star Wars. The movie hadn't even been out yet, so they told him what it was about, and they just didn't see any profit in that, or any potential for a good toy line. So they rejected him. All of the big ones rejected George Lucas. So George went to a smaller Cincinnati-based toy company called Kenner Toys, and they took on the Star Wars toy line. They decided to take a chance on it, but they really didn't put their neck out there. What they did was they gave George Lucas a really, really poor deal. They gave him a contract stating that the Kenner Corporation would get 95% of the profits. So George Lucas was only left with 5%. Really, it was George Lucas himself would get 2.5%, and the Star Wars itself, the company, his parent company, would get the other 2.5%. So as a whole, he would get 5%, him and Star Wars and his company, and Kenner would get 95%. So it was a really, really bad deal for George Lucas, but he didn't really have much of a choice. So he signed with Kenner, and Kenner, started making the toy line, and they, since George Lucas was very, very secretive about, he didn't want other production companies getting to see the models and some of the unique original art for the movie, like the sets and all the clothing and all the spaceships and stuff. George Lucas didn't want that out, so he kind of kept it quiet. Normally a toy company will get all this stuff. They get to see all the stuff, about a year in advance, so they can start working on the toy. Well, Lucas, he didn't give it to them till about 3 or 4 months before the movie came out. So they had to quickly come up with something. So they didn't have time to release the toys before the movie came out, that's when you want to release the toys, so you can capitalize on the movie. So what they did was, and you can see on the back of this action figure, the bottom there, right? The bottom part there, that is the Star Wars collector's action stand. And I'm going to read to you what this says. It says, you get a display stand, all 12 figures on the colorful stand, Star Wars Galaxy stand, sturdy plastic with action levers to move the figures back and forth, and easily removable for individual play. From 2 Star Wars action figures packages, along with $2, send $2 to Star Wars Collector's Action Stand. So what they did is they sent out an early release package. Basically, you would buy, it's almost like an IOU is what it was, because they didn't have the figures. So you'd go to the store and you would buy this Star Wars early release kit. And what it came with is kind of the stand, the cardboard cut out, and you would get that, and then you would mail away for the other the figures. Actually, it was promised to you when you bought that you would get the first figures when they would come out 3 or 4 months from the day you bought the kit. So you didn't get the actual toys right when you wanted them, because they didn't have them, they weren't released, and they weren't able to rush them out like that. They just didn't have the resources. So even with that, you would think that's just a recipe for failure. But Star Wars was so amazing when it came out that it didn't even matter that they didn't have the toys ready. It still became hugely popular, and when they did release the toys, it became a huge hit. It was such a big hit that it forced other toy companies to have to come up and invent new toy lines, like He-Man and G.I. Joe. Both of them were a result of the success of Star Wars. They were invented by the Mattel and Hasbro, who had to do something because they passed on the Star Wars toy line. So they came up with G.I. Joe and He-Man respectively. So but you can see, you can learn more about that if you watch the documentary series on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. but for right now, I just wanted to show you again my Vinyl Caped Jawa, and I really hope that you guys found this informative or entertaining. And I want to remind you guys that I'm going to be putting links in the description below, where links to my eBay page, and then links to some of the other websites and YouTube channels that I find interesting or entertaining that have to do with things that I talk about on my videos. So please, if you do anything for me, please hit that like button and subscribe. If you subscribe to my channel, I would really greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to bringing you more videos on some of my different items that I have. I have a whole bunch of stuff in my collection, and I want to showcase them and talk about them to you guys, because each piece that I have has a little bit of a history to it, and you know, you may or may not find it entertaining, but there's a huge demand for collectors, for toy collectors and stuff, and toy collections like this from collectors. And I think one of the reasons is because of some of the interesting stories that are behind the actual toys themselves. So, you know, normally if you'd see a toy like this and you don't know anything about it, you would be like, oh, okay, it's just another Star Wars action figure. But if you know now, you know, if you know the history and how rare it is to have something like this, to see something like this, then, you know, if you ever come across it, you know, you'd be educated, you would know, and you'd be, wow, is that actually a Vinyl Caped Jawa, if you're lucky enough to ever find one at an estate sale or at a thrift store, garage sale, or anything like that, which I doubt. But if you were able to find one, I think you'd be pretty excited knowing what it is to be able to purchase it, because it'd be worth a lot of money, especially if you found it at a really great deal where you can buy it as an investment, or buy it, you know, if you're a collector, buy it to be the centerpiece in your collection, because this would definitely be a centerpiece to anybody's Star Wars collection. It's an incredible figure, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. And please remember to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another great video. Thank you.